Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Glad to have you here like always. In today's video, we are going to be focusing on baby birds. There's a video that I posted a while back that has been gaining a lot of traction here recently on YouTube, and that was a video about hand feeding baby birds and how to make a homemade hand feeding formula. Now, the reason why I made this video was because I noticed that there were a lot of people in one of the previous videos that I posted about hand feeding baby birds. I probably have a good 4 or 5 different videos. There were a lot of comments in previous videos asking me or telling me that they couldn't find that specific hand feeding formula that I was talking about because in their part of the world, it doesn't exist, or it is very difficult to get hand feeding formula. Another reason why I made it was because during the time of the making of that video, it was during the time of COVID and it was very difficult to get certain things. So I decided, hey, why not make a specific video on how you can make a specific type of hand feeding formula at home in case you find yourself in an emergency like this where you find a baby bird, or you have to rescue a bird that may be abandoned by the parents, or etc., whatever the case may have been. So I created that video, and due to that, I have been flooded with an insane amount of messages, whether that's through my Instagram or Facebook page, and even here on YouTube, asking me questions about baby birds that you guys have found, or baby birds that have been abandoned, and whether you can do this or do that. So I thought I'd make a video and clarify a couple of different things to make sure that you guys are making the right decisions when you find a baby bird. And first of all, if you're talking about a wild bird, and the majority of you guys have been talking about wild birds, you have to remember that especially during this time of the year, it is normal to find baby birds on the ground. If they're wild, then you find a baby bird on the ground and it is fully feathered, the best thing that you can do is leave it alone, because mom and dad are usually very close by somewhere, keeping a close eye on that bird, making sure that it's fine, and feeding it from time to time when it is needed. Now, I know it's normal. Your first instincts or your first fears, and many of you do it out of the kindness of your heart because you're worried for that baby bird, and that first instinct is, I have to save it. And trust me, that is not the case. By taking it away, you're causing more damage to that bird than anything else, because naturally, nature will eventually take its course. I know it is dangerous. I know you may not want it to die. You may be trying to save it, but more often than not, that baby bird will survive. It just hides out until it learns how to fly, because most birds, and as a general rule of thumb, they end up fledging prior to knowing how to fly correctly. And that is completely normal for them to do that. They have to learn how to fly. So for the first day or two, they may spend it very low on the ground, just kind of wandering about, and mom and dad will come and feed it. If you do end up rescuing it and taking it home with you, or taking it to an animal shelter, the vets will inspect it, and more often than not, they will tell you, please take it back to where you found it, release it. Mom and dad are usually close by, and they will continue to care for that bird. Now, other than this, other questions that I have received have been, what about the feeding schedule? And that is a very common question. I did a video about that a while back as well. And real quick before we continue, all of these videos that I've done on baby birds will be in the description box down below. But the feeding schedules for any type of baby bird is usually every hour to every 2 hours to every 3 hours. And what I mean by this is, the younger the bird, the more often it will have to eat. So if we're talking about a baby bird that has no feathers yet, and it is just a naked little body, more often than not, that little bird will have to eat more consecutively because it has a faster metabolism. So usually for a bird like that, I like to feed it every hour on the dot. Now, as the bird gets a little bit older and it starts to feather up, you're going to notice that it can go a little bit longer in between feedings. And you can do that by extending the feed time to 1.5 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, until the bird stops eating and it learns to eat on its own. Now, how will you know when to feed it? Very simple. They will beg. Trust me, when the bird is hungry, there's no stopping it from begging. It will start to make loud noises. It will be opening its mouth. It will be begging for food. And you know that this is your time to start feeding it. How do you know when to stop? Very simple. The bird's going to stop making noise. It will come a point where he will just shut its mouth. It's not going to beg anymore. You're going to notice that the side of his neck is swollen. That's the crop. And then that's how you know you can stop giving him food. Another question that we had was, what is that white lump on their neck? And that is something that I just talked about right now. That is called the crop, and it is normal to see that on all types of birds. Birds have a crop. This is where they store their food after they eat it, prior to the food going down into their system, and it starts the digestion. So in baby birds, it is more pronounced because they don't have feathers. So it is completely normal to see a lump on the side of the neck. And once it is full, you know that the crop is full. The baby bird's happy. Once that crop or that lump starts to get reduced and you can't see it anymore, it usually means it's time to feed the bird again. Another question that we had was, could I use an egg incubator to keep the baby bird warm? Yes, you can. That is basically one of the best ways of keeping any of these baby birds warm. You could put it inside of the incubator. I just suggest that you take a look at the bird's age prior to setting your incubator. If the baby bird is naked and it has no feathers, it will need a little bit of a higher temp when compared to if the bird starts to feather up. Now, usually by the time that they feather up all the way, there is no need to keep it in an incubator. Now, by that time, once they have those feathers, the baby birds are able to regulate their own body temperature. In the description box will be the link to one of the videos that I made talking about the baby wipe warmer, which is very similar to an incubator, and it is what I use for the baby birds because most of the time, since I'm on the go, I need to use something like that I can take with me in the car. It's very small when compared to an incubator. So go ahead and check that one out as well. The last question that we're going to answer today is, can I feed this to a baby bird cockatiel? And they're referring to the hand feeding formula or the homemade hand feeding formula that I created. And the short answer is yes, this homemade hand feeding formula is good for any type of bird that eats grain. So we're talking about pigeons, cockatiels, finches, canaries, chickens. I mean, any bird. Well, you don't hand feed chickens. Obviously, chickens know how to eat from the time that they hatch. But any bird that eats grain will do well on this type of hand feeding formula or this homemade hand feeding formula. Now, if the bird is a fruit eater, if it's insectivorous, or if it likes to eat nectar, then you will have to have a completely different type of hand feeding formula. This will not work for those types of birds, so keep that in mind. All right, guys, I hope that this clarifies a lot of the questions that you guys have had. I've tried my best to answer as many as I can on there, but again, it can get a little bit overwhelming. Like always, if you've enjoyed the video, remember to hit the thumbs up, like and subscribe, and we will see each other in the next one. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.